Hey, y'all ready to get started?
Yay!
We should have brought stickers.
I have a couple. Hello, and welcome to the Mac Admins podcast. I'm your host this week, Tom Bridge, a partner at Technolutionary. Marcus, fresh off his large stage debut here at the Jamf Nation User Conference. How are you?
I'm good now.
Well, and now I can see you in person. It's
Exactly. The nerves have settled down. It's been an interesting couple of days. The best bit about it is I've known Tom and Emily for a long time. I've known Charles longer, and I've met Charles several times.
Regrettably.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't been able to erase that from my memory, but we'll just leave that there. But last night was the first time I actually got to meet Tom and Emily in person, and I can confirm that they are real people. Pepine was going to try and come along and visit us, so I cannot confirm that he is a real person. I've decided he's possibly still a pinball machine that has become self-aware. So...
That seems somewhat likely.
Yeah,
actually.
I know your secret, Pepine.
I'm not sure that you can prove that you're Marcus. Show me your passport.
Oh,
I'll do
that's
that
cold.
later.
Oh,
That's brutal. Emily, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
It's great to see you here, like in person.
Yeah,
I
it's nice to be here and to see everybody. And
And I believe you're now the honor roll member for 2018, is that right?
yeah, 2 years in a row.
That's pretty awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was spoiled for me a little bit. Jamfs ran up to me yesterday and they were like, "We don't know how to say your name. How do you say your last name?" And I was like, "Just don't, and it'll be much easier. Just say my first name. It'll be fine."
Wonderful. And Charles, you guys have pulled off a wonderful event so far. Congratulations on finishing day one.
Thank you. I had nothing to do with it. It was all Sasha. Are you in the room, Sasha? And Jeff. Jeff, are you in the room? Yeah, they're sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I wouldn't blame them for passing out. Everything's been awesome so far. It's been a really great first day of the conference. So we are. So how are folks feeling? We got some awesome announcements about some new features and some things that are coming down the pike. And we also have some wonderful guests who are joining us here on the podcast this week. And while they take their seats, I'll give their brief introduction line items. Joining us for the second time, a repeat guest, Paul Bowden, the principal engineer for Office for Mac from Microsoft. And joining us for the first time, thank you very much, Jeff. Jeffrey Callis, senior program manager, Outlook for Mac from Microsoft.
Woo!
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
So you guys have had a pretty boring year, right?
Nothing going on?
No, nothing going on. I love this conference. This is just like an amazing vibe down here. And it's kind of just small enough to kind of go around and meet everybody. And yeah, thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's a wonderful community.
And we're really glad to have you here, especially here on the podcast to kind of talk with the people who are actually building the tools we use every day. So let's kind of go over the last couple of months because I kind of feel like you guys have had, a couple things going on here and there. I mean, Office 2019 has hit the streets, and MAU 4 has hit the streets. And the configuration profile management story has gotten a lot more robust. So when are you guys going to do something exciting?
Probably the end of this year.
Oh, really? What do you got planned?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're working on is a project called Nimbus. And I don't know how many of you go to the Preferences tab on macadmins.software. And kind of right now it's in a Google spreadsheet, which it's okay.
It works.
But it works. But we've been trying to get some copious documentation for all of our preferences and actually put it in a web service as well. And later on this year, you'll see a web service full of our Mac preferences.
That's awesome. What's that going to look like for the average user?
For the average user, you'll be able to, you can query through kind of Postman, and so it'll be a public API that anybody can kind of read from. And we're going to provide it to Jamf and all of our third parties as well so that you can leverage and take advantage of it.
Tremendous.
That sounds awesome, especially if it's an API so we can automate things. I like the sound of that.
Yes, very much.
So,
you go ahead, Charles.
can you tell us a little about the Office for
Mac.
Mac coming to... Can you tell us about the Mac, Paul?
Just tell us.
Your Mac. It's sitting right
Please.
there.
Because Brad couldn't earlier. No, I'm kidding. Too soon. But could you tell us a little
I'm
about...
not going to make any lame jokes about touching the screen, okay?
the lame
Just some
jokes?
really good ones.
Just good jokes.
I'm here for the lame jokes. But could you tell us about Office coming to the Mac App Store?
Yeah, sure. And it's kind of really interesting because these guys invited me onto one of the original Mac admin podcasts, and Charles was asking some vexing questions about having a single app bundle and when are we going to see that? And so, well, not yet. Maybe it's some other point in time. So I mentioned this a few times before, but during like the 2016 generation leading up to that release, we thought we were actually going to release into the Mac App Store. That was going to be the way for us to distribute Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook 2016. But there were some complications, mainly kind of non-technical complications and some kind of different trains of thought and different philosophies on how we present our apps. We like to present our apps as a suite, not as a single app downloads. And so most of you would have seen the news from Apple, I think it was last week, about Apple now providing app bundles in the Mac App Store. And as part of that, we're bringing the full suite of Office applications to the Mac App Store. There will be from a consumer perspective, a single click to go download and acquire the 6 apps, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, and OneDrive. Those will be considered as the suite. And of course, we'll make them available through the VPP portal as well, so that you can get them just down through VPP and deploy them through Jamf.
Other MDMs.
Or other MDMs. Absolutely. Other others?
Well, there's a couple.
Oh, okay. They're essentially, free app downloads. They have the in-app purchase for the subscription. But of course, if you have like an existing Office subscription, whether it's like consumer or commercial, like Pro Plus, then you'll just be able to just activate those. We will support both 2019 volume license activation and Office 365 activation when you source from the Mac App Store.
Awesome.
That's a pretty generous round of applause. I know that there are a lot of folks out there kind of been concerned about what that story would look like in terms of, hey, I want to push this thing out, but how do I actually license it? And to say that that's not just something for subscription customers, but also for volume license users, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No problems. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we've been continuing to push the VL serializer method. Because the VL serializer contains the kind of the daemons and agents that run on the machine that work at a computer level rather than just user space. And that's exactly how we're able to volume license with Mac App Store acquisition. It's in conjunction with the VL serializer. So we're feeling great about that.
What about updates with the Mac App Store? Is it an all or nothing scenario, or does MAU work with the App Store versions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, when you acquire apps through the Mac App Store, the Mac App Store app takes on the role of providing you with updates. One of the original kind of discussions that we had with Apple about Office in the App Store, our apps are pretty large and updates are pretty large. And a couple of years ago, Apple didn't have the facility for Delta updates. And now that they do, and we've kind of verified that, and they kind of look great, the Mac App Store will perform Delta updates for the Office app. So MAU, Microsoft Auto Update, doesn't get involved in the Mac App Store update scheme. MAU itself is a non-sandboxed app, so it itself cannot live and shouldn't live inside the App Store. But when we brought out MAU 4 with the MS Update command, we were very intentional about having a symmetrical design of like command line switches between MS Update and Software Update. So Software Update is the command that you're going to use to update Office when you acquire through the Mac App Store. So.
Lovely.
So then what do you think this is all going to look like in a corporate environment? Like how you're all designing Mac App Store, app delivery, and Delta updates, how are y'all envisioning that being delivered by corporate or education customers?
Through Jamf. Today you can, if you use iPads and iPhones, we deliver a Office through the iOS App Store, and you distribute them through VPP. We do the same with kind of OneNote on the Mac App Store. I think. I definitely think that those existing mechanisms will continue to work, but I come across a lot of customers using the MAU caching server to cut down on the amount of bandwidth for our largest packages, and so I think if you're not using it already, maybe some content caching in Mac OS or the kind of software update caching. I think we'll see perhaps a lot more of that being utilized because of the size of our packages.
They are quite large.
They are. And
to configure settings, do you envision administrators sending down configuration profiles with all the defaults domains in them?
So on the CF preference side, whether it's policies, preferences, I think the greatest thing is nothing changes. Meaning that anything that you can do with a CDN-based install, you can do with a Mac App Store install. They are essentially the same applications with the same functionality, and you don't really have to decide. There's no trade-off between using one over the other.
So you're promising you'll never change any of the domains, so I don't have to edit my scripts ever again?
Correct, with the exception of OneNote, because OneNote does have 2 different CFpref domains already.
What's OneNote?
Sorry, OneDrive.
Right.
OneDrive. Too many ones.
We need 2s, right?
Yeah.
What about sort of enterprise organisations that have a very specific version of Office that they're wanting to target? How would you imagine that they'd sort of look at deploying that when the App Store is kind of designed around the latest, or is that sort of getting everyone into the let the software be free kind of environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I lied. There are a couple of trade-offs then.
There's always trade-offs.
So the 2 immediate trade-offs for Mac App Store acquisition. The first is that, of course, you have to accept the version of the app that's coming from the Mac App Store. With Mojave, you have the kind of 90-day deferral mechanism, which is fairly new to most people, so you can utilize that. But if you need to specifically deploy a particular version, then you may not kind of want to use the Mac App Store for delivery. The other reason why you might not want to use it is that Mac App Store will only ever deliver the production bits, the production channel. And a lot of people like the inside of fast, inside of slow bits. Those will only ever come through the CDN.
Okay. So this is a great moment for us to stop and take a moment and say thank you to our friends at Collide for sponsoring the Mac Admins podcast. What good is full disk encryption if your user makes unencrypted time machine backups? How useful is it to use SSH keys to access a production server if that key isn't encrypted and resides in a shared folder? What's the point of two-factor authentication on services like GitHub if the user stores backup codes in their personal Dropbox account? To help address problems like these, Collide offers a turnkey solution to help monitor your endpoints. It is the first product in the industry that takes these type of user-driven security holes seriously and helps you understand the cause and effect relationships between many seemingly innocuous and disconnected actions with potentially catastrophic consequences. By using the powerful and performant open source project called OS Query, Collide allows you to detect dozens of vulnerabilities quickly and helps you effectively communicate your organization's security policy to every end user. To learn more about Collide and their security solution, visit collide.com. That's KOLIDE.com. And try their product free for 30 days for your entire fleet. Thanks, Collide. We like you too.
You almost got there.
So close.
I mean, you nailed it. Yeah. Sometimes we have to do that like 12 times.
Yeah,
so.
come on.
Good job, Tom.
I'm over-exaggerating. We've never had to do it 12. 11.
It's 11. It's 11. Ad reads are difficult, right? Because it's
That's
a
why
challenge.
you do them.
Trust the guy with vocal performance training. So one of the most common questions that we used to get is whether Outlook for Mac could do PST files. And should we expect that anytime soon, Jeff?
Yeah, so
great question. PSTs is something right now in Outlook for Mac, you can import a PST file, which is something common. Maybe you're moving from PC to Mac. Welcome. Come on into Outlook for Mac. But we don't have the same level of PST support that you have in Outlook on Windows. You don't mount the PST, drag and drop items in, and then maybe unmount or remove it and archive it somewhere locally. So basically, what we're doing on the team is, we're monitoring feedback, we're listening to customers, and when I first joined the team, exporting PSTs was something that was fairly common, a common request. And really, with Exchange Online, Office 365 mailboxes, a lot larger mailbox quotas, we're seeing those types of requests, decline. And we're really focused on, answering the top feedback and the top requests that we have. So no, it's not on our list to export a PST. Really, with an Office 365 mailbox, you should have a lot more quota. You shouldn't have to be dragging around these PSTs locally. And also with things like Online Archive, you can have a separate archive mailbox where you can use server-side archive policies to move items in and kind of get them out of your primary mailbox, which is syncing on your Mac.
So that leads into another question. So PST files is something that people have been asking for, right? What other features or things that you've heard from customers are you most excited or most looking forward to getting in the hands of us, the Mac admins?
Yeah, well, the fact that I'm here is, to me, a huge change for our team. We're listening to Mac admins. We're providing admin capabilities within the product to help configure your mailbox, manage in-app settings. But one example that I'm just really excited about, just last week we rolled out an improvement to our calendar sync. And what we did is we came to a point where we wanted to add features, and we knew that we needed to move off of our protocol, EWS, for syncing calendars. So we've actually revamped the calendar to use REST protocol to bring us better improvements with syncing and sharing calendars. Permissions, a lot of the permissions problems we've had has been because of EWS. And for the first time, when we released this to Insider Fast last week, we provided preference keys for admins to help control that rollout. We roll out slowly with feature flights, and sometimes if you're in an organization, maybe every other person will get the feature. And with additional pref keys, we give admins the ability to control the rollout, provide us feedback while we're an insider. So as Paul mentioned, if you're using App Store, we want folks to be an insider. We love the feedback. Insider Fast and is really what gets you the latest and greatest. And so I'm excited about our changes in calendar and giving admins the ability to control feature rollout, among other things.
So a PST is like a MAPI file, right?
Yeah,
Are you going to be, if you're changing the calendars, are you going to be changing the format of that file?
So for us, we can import the PST. So we're taking that file format, which is from Outlook for Windows, which uses MAPI. Outlook for Mac is not a MAPI client. And so for us, with the change in sync from EWS to REST, yes, we're going to actually go through a process to resync your calendar, but it has really nothing to do with PSTs, and we'd like to get out of the PST business, actually.
And will the free busy still be in ITIP, like as a backend protocol, or is that you?
So FreeBusy comes in through REST now, and so you'll be able to schedule your events. And actually, for the first time, you can finally see FreeBusy, calendars for your colleagues, for other shared calendars on the actual calendar grid itself, which was something we didn't have in Outlook for Mac. So
Cool.
That's awesome. I know that we've been kind of banging on that drum with one of our clients through their back-end chain. So on behalf of them, we'd like to say thank you, because that's a huge blocker for them, at least on the Mac environment. So that's been really great. That's great to hear. So.
Is that something that would potentially work with, not that Microsoft would have a vested interest in this, but working with other chat clients like Slack or other things like that to be able to mirror status like Skype or Teams does?
Yeah, so in Outlook for Mac, the integration we have, for for one thing, Skype for Business and coming with Teams is scheduling online meetings. We do have presence, chat presence for Skype for Business, but really, in terms of, say, a Slack integration or something like that, nothing planned right now. We're working with our Teams team on kind of the next step in integrating with them.
Cool.
So what kind of challenges have you had getting Office ready for the App Store? I know that we talked about this before, but it's been some time, and now we're finally here. What were the last kind of big hurdles for you guys?
Probably the biggest hurdle was to get the bundle support in the Mac App Store. As I mentioned, we really do think of like Office through the suite value, and we really didn't like the idea of somebody having to go to the Mac App Store and download Word and then download Excel, but not get PowerPoint, and that kind of fragmentation there. So the Apple relationship is great, and we have a very kind of open dialogue of requests go backwards and forwards, and it's been awesome that Apple has now allowed that, and that really is kind of the linchpin for us to go forward and deliver in the App Store. Our public statement is end of this year for delivery of the apps, all of the apps within inside the Mac App Store. It is the kind of the 2019 generation. So it's, when I mentioned VL earlier, it's like 2019 VL and O365. So we won't support the 2016 style generation. But a few of those issues, we have to get the in-app purchase flows working in all of the apps. Because that's one of the requirements from Apple on bundles, so we're kind of working through that. But apart from that, it really has been fairly plain sailing. All of the code for Mac App Store, all of the design, the sandboxing has been in there for the last 3 years. So really, right now, we're just in validation phase, just making sure that that everything that we had in place 3 years ago is still in place.
Yeah.
So are you bringing Clippy to in-app purchasing?
Yeah, there's, Clippy is kind of funny. In the olden days, we used to, plagiarize all of the Win32 Office Teams code, and we kind of plagiarized Clippy and implemented on Mac, and we call him Max, M-A-X-X, and you can kind of Google, you'll find some little Max, little GIFs around. But no, he's not coming back, I'm afraid.
Learning something new every day.
Yeah.
Math.
I really liked Dean's Animoji that he showed this morning.
What about the Mac App Store version of Word with third-party tools like EndNote? Are there any issues with that in a sandboxed environment, or are they working as expected?
Yep, they're working as expected. Yeah. So the bundle names don't change. It's kind of interesting because over the last few years, and for those of you that have interacted with Schweib, Eric Schwiebert on the Slack channel, Schweib is one of the architects behind our sandboxing change, our carbon to cocoa move, and it was painful, taking an application, especially one that uses a lot of automation and VB script support, and actually making that conformant with Apple's guidelines. So a lot of that pain was encountered a few years ago, and it's been a little frustrating that we paid the price for that conversion, but didn't get to reap any fruit, because it kind of seemed like, well, we just changed a whole bunch of stuff, but nothing changed from your perspective, but functionality got less. So now it's kind of satisfying that we're finally able to say, and this is why we did it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I thought about was interesting is that I realized is that today I got my Insider Fast build because I'm running about 3 days behind them on all my updates. And
that's because they're so large, right?
Yeah, they're big. So my AWS bill hates it when you guys do 2 in a month, by the way. So I'm just putting that out there. But I thought it was interesting, we're still in the 16 family of builds. And I was kind of wondering, when does 16.19 or 16.20 become 17.0?
Yeah, and it's kind of both interesting and kind of unfortunate how the versioning changes worked out. If only had more time. But it was a complete coincidence that the version 16 of our build system, seems to be the same as 2016, kind of has a similar naming scheme. But it really was just coincidental. And 16 has been used on the kind of the Windows Office side for the last few years. In fact, version 17 has already been taken by the SharePoint Online team, so we can't take that. Version 18 is already gone. So in fact, we worked out that we will stay as version 16 for the next 54 years. So in fact, based on the build numbering system, we will exhaust our build numbers in 54 years. So that is the plan of record. We will continue to stay at 16.
Then what?
What's that?
Then what? In 54 years,
What?
what's the plan? We need to get.
Then use it in a web browser, Marcus.
What's the roadmap for 54 years?
No, I'll let perhaps my grandchildren will come up here and many years from now and answer that.
Yeah. So coming back a little bit closer from 54 years. So after you've got all of the work for getting into the App Store out, so what's next? What's the next sort of challenge you'd like to address, or feature you'd like to implement in your work?
Yeah, so I'll answer first, and then I can swing it over to Jeff. I mentioned our Nimbus work, which is great. I was saying to Jeff over at lunch, it's kind of so satisfying now that there's a much better mentality about supporting the enterprise inside our engineering team. I love the fact when I see commits coming from Jeff's engineers that it says in there, and I tested this through the attached mobile config file. And that's huge for me, getting that knowledge to all the engineers at Microsoft about, hey, this is what an MDM is. This is how an enterprise IT admin deploys. This is what it means to be a managed preference, not just a random plist file. And so I'm going to continue sometimes hounding our other groups within Microsoft to have better enterprise support. I'm looking at you, Teams, and a few others, and really keep going there. Jeff?
Yeah, so on Outlook, lots of challenges ahead for sure. I think I touched upon a little bit about modernizing our app. For Calendar, we realized we were kind of exhausted with EWS and had to move to REST. And looking at what we need to do, there's some big changes coming. And one example is that Outlook syncs all of your items now to your Mac. And if you have a huge mailbox, we have users that have 100 gig profiles, and that takes up a lot of space on, say you have 256 gigs of storage. It's like, why is Outlook using that much space? And we realize, we do that now because of Spotlight Search, offline access, and it's how our app works. But going forward, mailboxes are going to get bigger. People don't delete mail, no PST archive, those types of things. So, looking at having a smart, sync slider, sync window, and then that means not all your items are on your Mac, so you have to search online. You have to hit Office 365 for your searches, and how does that change offline? So those are some big changes that are coming. We've actually started, which is good news. It's going to take a while, but I look to this community to give us that first feedback through Insider Fast, and partnering with admins along the way to say, when we have a disruptive change, how are we going to ease our end users into that? So there's a lot coming, and I'm looking forward to introducing it and using Mac admins as a forum.
Sweet. Thank you guys so much for joining
Yes.
us. Bill Smith is looking at me and texting me threatening violence with a rubber chicken or something. I'm thoroughly confused about this whole situation, but apparently you guys have somewhere that you have to go. So thank you so much for joining us. And Paul and Jeff, it's an honor to be up here with you.
It really is. And Microsoft has made so many awesome changes over the last few years. And you guys being here is part of that. So thank you. And please say thank you to the nice folks at Microsoft for making awesome stuff.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The MacAdmins Community Calendar is brought to you by Watchman Monitoring. Are you tired of users coming to you hair on fire because their computer isn't working? Watchman Monitoring is a lightweight, read-only, proactive system that streamlines the support you provide by finding potential problems before they become serious issues. Visit watchmanmonitoring.com to start a risk-free trial to see how we can make your day-to-day run smoother. Be in the know with Watchman Monitoring at watchmanmonitoring.com. Links and dates for these events can be found in the show notes. If you have an event or a conference that you'd like us to announce, please submit a pull request to our public calendar at github.com/tbridge/macadminscomcal. And thanks again to Watchman Monitoring for sponsoring this community calendar. First up, we've got conferences. The Jamf Nation User Conference is going on right now.
Right now.
If you happen to be listening on Wednesday or Thursday, stop what you're doing, get in your car, and come to the Jamf Nation User Conference in Minneapolis. It's running October 23rd through 25th. I'm sure with some amount of money, you can register at the last minute. The Objective by the Sea Conference is
Those
happening.
checks are payable to Charles.
The Objective by the Sea Conference is happening in Wailea, Hawaii, November 3rd and 4th, and is a Patreon backer-based conference. MacTech Conference will be in Los Angeles, California, November 6th through 9th, and costs $899. I believe that's going up this week or next, so please check their website for more accurate information, and I'll update the calendar when I get home. There's a party right after this show. If you are listening to this podcast later, it's too late. Don't come. We'll be at Finnegan's Brew Company starting at 6:30 tonight. We also have a meetup for the Mac deployment. The Mac deployment meetup is happening at the Market Mall Apple Store in Calgary, Alberta on tomorrow, October 24th at 6:30 p.m. Atlanta Apple admins will meet at the CNN Center. Say hi to Ted for me. On 8 November 2018 at 7 p.m. Toronto Apple admins will meet at the Globe and Mail Center in Toronto on 15 November. Dallas Apple admins will meet at Bottle Rocket Studios on 15 November at 6:30 p.m. Don't miss the 30. You don't want to be that guy or gal or person. I'm just going to say.
Thank you.
The Brisbane Apple Wranglers will meet at the Brisbane CBD location, which has a link which goes to a site that takes you to that location on the 22nd of November 2018. So that's the end of the community calendar, but I'd like to welcome our next guest, Alan Goldbig. How are you, Alan?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a pretty great day.
Yeah.
And so, Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself. You work at?
NASA.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You brought the shuttle for us to all ride around the conference,
Parking
right?
lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work? Cool.
Sweet.
I just have to ask them first.
Yeah, you gotta get right up close on that microphone
First
so we can
time.
all hear it. First time guest?
Yeah, first time guest.
Pretty cool. So there's a lot going on at NASA, and it's not just Houston and Cape Canaveral. Can you give us a good description of the work that you do at Glenn Research Center?
Sure. First off, raise of hands. How many people know that there is a center in Cleveland, Ohio?
I know because I know you and you work there.
So yeah, I work on a team called ETADS. Think of us as NIST or DISA for NASA. So we set security baselines, set the end of life for software for the agency, and hand those off to engineering to do the work, or hand that off to operations to do the work for the agency.
So what kind of unique challenges does doing IT at NASA carry with it?
There's a lot of three-letter words, a lot of I'm still learning everything, and I've been there for about a year and a half. And we will roll out projects, and it takes some time because you have to wait for all the reviews and everything to take place. But it's cool, and I get to say I work at NASA.
That is pretty
I
cool.
am a contractor, so.
Should we ask you about smart cards? Is that a sore subject?
No. I'll be talking about that here on Thursday, so.
So yeah, tell us about your talk on Thursday.
We have to log into our Macs with smart cards, and we had a unique challenge that we wanted to unbind, like everyone else, and we still wanted to be able to use our cards to log in. So I'll be talking about all of that on Thursday morning at 10:15.
All right. And which room will you be in so that all the folks here can like stalk you?
Upstairs and
Back that way somewhere?
back that way. The weird long room with the.
For the
with
listeners
posts.
that can't see you pointing, he's pointing east.
Yes. I know it's back there.
So I got to ask you a question. Please tell me that you have endpoints in space. You can lie if you want, but please tell me you have cool stuff in space.
As far as I know, we have iPads in the ISS,
That's pretty awesome.
but that's all I can say.
Okay.
What's
Matter of national
Otherwise,
security.
I
We
may-
don't want to go too far.
what's the
Lose my
network latency like?
What?
The network latency.
I cannot say.
NDM commands take 30 minutes, probably.
But aren't they like? Wouldn't you think that ISS would be closer to the satellites? Like,
You know, you would think that, but it moves so fast.
it's true.
But I
We're
cannot,
not
I cannot confirm or
physicists,
deny.
in case anyone's curious, so we probably shouldn't be talking about this.
But it's
So,
space.
Alan, what kind of unique challenges does NASA bring to a Mac administrator?
So I've been a Mac admin for a while and didn't work in the government for my entire career until a year and a half ago. So it's been different. I'm no longer in operations, so that's amazing.
No help desk tickets for you.
No, I just have to support two people that are over there and the rest of my team. I mean, one of the unique things is that each center has their own kind of like staff. We have contracts for systems, and then so getting everybody to be, I guess, what you would want to call like a one NASA, do everything together, has been a challenge. But it's coming together. There's some of our engineers are here from another center, and they're reining everything into Jamf Pro, and it's working great.
That sounds similar to a lot of the university customers I
Yes,
talk to.
and I've worked at a university, and it's every department has their own IT group, and it's very weird like that too.
So one of our favourite things on the Mac Admin podcast is the origin story. So tell us about yourself, Alan. How did you get to NASA? Which is something I've always loved to
By
ask
luck.
someone.
So I'm from New York. I worked in New York. I worked in healthcare. Christos knows me. And my wife is a surgeon, and we moved around for her training. And I ended up in Cleveland, and I was working from home. And then one day I saw a posting, and it said NASA, and I was like, huh? They have a center here? And I applied, and like 2 weeks later, got the job. So
That's awesome.
that's really it. It was very fast.
So what kind of adventures are you looking forward to in upcoming releases? I mean, we're coming down the pike, you know, Mojave's out in the field. How are you guys headed that way now, or are still in testing phase, or?
It was nice that Jeff left early because there's some issues with Outlook that are getting worked on, and we really need Outlook to work with our smart cards. So right now, no Mojave. I get to use it, and pretty much I'm the only one that I know of. There might be a few others. And it would be great if we could get more support of smart cards, like maybe setup assistant, so we didn't have to kind of hack things together.
What kind of challenges are you facing there? What's that process look like for you guys right now if it doesn't support your cards?
So you first have to log in. We use DEP, and then we have a script that we run from self-service. The user puts their card in, and it gets the information off the card, adds it to the user's record, and then they have to log out, log back in. But at that point, they put the card in. It switches from password to PIN. But it would be nice if you start up a computer and it had the ability to see that there's a card in it, and you're able to go. The other things are File Vault doesn't support it, so you still have to use a password there. And our goal really is to remove the need for passwords. That's really where we want to go.
Sure.
So.
What kind of conversations have you had with Apple about those kind of things? I mean, is that a place where you've got an active relationship where you're working those kind of struggles?
Yeah, we have a really good SE, and there's a good smart card community. in Slack. I'm in there, so you can pick my brain.
And that's the smart card channel?
Yeah.
But
And-
Franton's in there too, so I don't go there.
What?
But Franton's in there too, so I
Yeah.
don't go in that room.
Yeah, he is.
Just kidding. We love you.
We do. We miss you.
Hi, Richard.
Can I ask you a really serious question?
Sure.
Do you ever get to wear a spacesuit to work?
No. I did take an Uber to work once, and they drop you off at the front gate, and then you have to like walk through the gate because they can't go through. And on the way there, the driver asked me if I was an astronaut, and I was like, "Do I look like an astronaut?" I mean, but
I'm going to paraphrase here. When someone asks you if you're an astronaut, you say yes.
I'll do that the next time.
That might be a disciplinary offence in
Well-
some organisations, Tom.
We'll
Okay,
be saying
I can
yes in
see
the
that.
bar tonight, to be clear.
Can I ask you a real serious question?
Sure.
So there's been a lot of talk about security posture. It's always a topic, right? So is there anything you can tell us about security tools that maybe not that you use, but maybe you would recommend to folks that are needing to implement smart cards or maybe take on more advanced security postures in their organizations?
Speaking personally at this point.
So we started looking at OS Query, but there's no smart card checks for it yet. I'm hoping that gets added at some point. I've spoken with them, but hasn't gone beyond that. Other than that, I can't say what we run on our systems publicly. So maybe I can. I can? I can. Okay, so what do we run?
He just got a thumbs up on that, just for people that can't see.
Yeah,
For the
keep my
listeners
job.
who can't hear, that was
good job.
some of Jeff's, or some of Alan's coworkers saying, yes, he can say what they use, and they like him saying that.
They like
Which
that he's being
seems awkward.
cautious about what he's saying publicly.
Yeah.
We're just
Good
going to give the
job,
thumbs up
Alan.
and go with it.
So, I mean, to get like the PIV reporting or smart card reporting, we basically use extension attributes and smart groups and stuff like that. For other things, we have to use Big Fix, which is lovely if you haven't used it.
It
Good for
fixes
you.
many big things.
And so we use that for compliance reporting. And then other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, standard tools, Symantec, stuff like that.
So how do astronauts cope when, a new phone, for example, gets released? Is there a process to actually allow them to get the latest products up in space? Do they have to wait for the next,
It might be a little bit, Marcus.
Yeah.
We've had some difficulties lately.
This is important.
I have no idea.
You guys are obsessed with space.
No idea.
Oh, wait, Alan's here. Sorry. I get it.
This is our only chance. We have to ask the questions.
Did you bring NASA swag for us?
No. Sorry.
So the Mac
I'll
Admins-
mail it to you guys.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. So the Mac Admins podcast is also brought to you by JumpCloud. By now you've heard that Apple is pulling back on its feature set for Open Directory, leaving many Mac admins unsure of its direction. But you know you can't leave your Macs ungoverned. There are Mac MDM products. Those provide some coverage, but they're not a directory. There's Microsoft Active Directory, but maybe you're not making that call. You could build your own LDAP server, but who on staff knows how? None of it feels right, I'm sure. But there is a solution, JumpCloud. JumpCloud's directory as a service is a 100% cloud-based directory, offering all the power of the directories you've trusted and used on-premise with none of the management overhead. Directory as a service enables you to remotely bind your Mac, Windows, and Linux fleet to ensure you've got them completely governed no matter their location. JumpCloud will enable you to provision and manage user accounts, add MFA to systems, set policies, execute commands and maintenance jobs, and allow users to control and manage their own passwords directly from the system itself. JumpCloud's directory goes beyond systems, connecting users not just to their computer, but to all the resources they need access to. Their Wi-Fi and VPN networks, their on-premise and cloud-based apps, Windows and Linux servers, NAS devices, virtually anything that an employee needs access to. Sound too good? It's free up to 10 users, so come see for yourself. Give it a try at jumpcloud.com/signup. And thanks very much to our friends at JumpCloud.
And allow me to say, if you would like to alter any of the ad read text, for any of the listeners out there who might want to complain or mention that they don't like the text that some of our advertisers give us, please feel free to submit a PR.
PR's gracefully accepted.
So now we can talk about some current events. So what have we heard here today at JNUC? IBM just open sourced their famed splash screen. So has anybody already downloaded that and given that a spin?
Do I see hands out there?
Yes,
I see at least
we
one.
see hands out there.
Keith, excellent. So what did you think so far? Just give us a thumbs up. All right, so the repository does in fact download. Excellent.
It wasn't a cruel, cruel joke.
It was not a cruel joke, but it was exciting to see IBM giving back to the community, and as frequently as they do support open source, to see them push out their tool. And there's a lot to like in that tool, and so essentially that's going to help organizations if they're looking for custom, first launch experience. I think is probably the best way to call that.
And the exciting thing is that every organisation is different. And there's a lot of different tools out there, and having another tool that's going to fit that gap that maybe some of the other existing tools didn't fill is really exciting. There's new and exciting different things to mess about with and get working.
I'll be interested to see with their splash screen how easy it is to actually customize it for a different organization. That not everyone can sit down in an Xcode project and understand what they need to do to go through and change stuff. And it'll be interesting to see what the other components are for that besides just the app bundle. If it's a little bit more like DEP Notify, where you can use p-lists to encourage different behavior in the application and stuff like that. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to downloading that package and kind of tearing it apart a little bit later, and maybe we can get Eric or part of his team back on, or some other nice folks from IBM to come talk to us a little bit more about that project in the future.
Yeah.
So what else did we hear about in the keynote that was exciting? What other news was there?
Oh, the thing that kind of got me all excited was Azure AD at the login window.
Yeah.
That was seriously cool to see. So my thanks to everybody at Jamf who got that working. I believe that may have been inclusive with our friends from Nomad and some other tools that they've been working on.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching and. The code was being worked on Friday.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're definitely not done. It's definitely not released to the operating system. It's coming soon. But you'll be able to, as part of your initial splash screen, use Azure AD credentials to actually log in and create a local user, as well as do permissions escalation against your Azure AD groups, which I thought was actually
really cool.
That was really hot. And it was really great that you could see essentially an admin, somebody walk up with their Azure AD credentials and their little, touch the watch to make sure that it's you've got your two-factor going, and be able to do that kind of thing remotely.
And passwordless.
Yeah.
Yes, passwordless, right?
Now that was the Jamf corporate environment that was being used. So Dean does have full admin rights on everyone's machine in the organisation.
He has no admin rights on his own machine. No.
So the other thing that ties into that is that part of what made that possible is that the new addition to the pre-stage in Jamf starting in 10.9 to allow an enrollment package, which I understand is going to eventually use, or for at least for Mojave, use install enterprise application to put that payload in place, which is awesome. And I know a lot of admins have been asking for that for a very long time. So that was my takeaway that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, package install.
And for me, it was 2 words: await configuration.
Yes.
In the REST documentation, that's 1 word.
Well, and
It's camel case.
It's 2 words pretending to be 1 word.
But
masquerading as 1
await configuration is just iOS right now, though, right? It's not a Mac OS feature, just to put that out.
In the current build, that is my understanding.
Okay.
I'm on a not current build. I'm on a build that you'll not see for a few months.
So we're going to await configuration.
We will be awaiting.
Could the audience join me in a communal groaning? Thank you.
Try the veal.
good.
I'll be here all week.
That was good. For me, part of what my organization does is periodically we go look at other MDM providers and make sure that we weigh our options, and that there are other MDM providers that do allow bootstrap packages in their DEP and MDM enrollment workflows, and now that Jamf is delivering that, and in a really nice, easy to understand format, I think is big. It's a big deal. So thank you, Jamf.
Yeah, thanks for everybody at Jamf for their hard work. I know that this is a big release cycle for them. They've got a lot going on, and a lot of future-facing, high-impact features being talked about now.
I would say one of the big points that we're trying to make at the conference is we're releasing features every 6 weeks, I believe, this past year. And so there's not this big 11.0 reveal. It's really more of this slow roll. We're getting them in front of you as quick as we can, cleaning out some of the roadmap, cleaning up a bunch of the defects, things of that nature, as opposed to we're just going to hold it all and then have this one big release that could potentially actually introduce way more defects than is intended.
Product issues, you mean?
Whatever you want to call them, man. Semantics, bugs. We'll just say bugs. Yeah. It's a dirty word, but
So, Alan, do you have any takeaways from today? Sessions you've seen, keynote, anything we haven't touched?
So I went to the Git to JSS session, and that's a big thing for us, version control, peer review, and I walked away and I'm like, yep, we're going to have to start doing that, build out that. I was like, do we have a Jenkins server? And I'm like, nope, we need to do that. So for me, that was the best session for me for the day.
Got some homework?
Yes.
I would say that's something my team specifically is looking at. So if anyone in the room wants to discuss commit-based device management, go ahead and let me know.
We'll do that. Talk to me.
And what about SAP? They had some pretty exciting things to show off as well. Demonstrating live on stage with a new hire provisioning a phone, what could possibly go wrong?
There must have been some massive sacrifices to the demo gods for
Yeah.
everything to work as well as it did this morning. It
There are
was
some people who aren't coming home from JNUC because it is we had a perfect day of demos, and I can't think of a major issue that happened today.
Three DEP enrollments that were,
I tried to talk them out of doing as many as they were doing on Friday.
and 3 different devices, an Apple TV,
Yeah.
a Mac, and an iOS device.
There's a guy, Blake, who is central to all of that being pulled off, and I believe I saw him breaking out in hives, but thank you so much to Blake for all of the awesome work there.
Good job, Blake.
Yeah, good job, Blake. So that takes us about to the end of our day here at the MacAdmins podcast. I have some folks I really need to say thank you to. There are wonderful Patreon backers. Randy Wong, Weldon Dodd. If any of you are here today, feel free to stand up and wave at us, and we'll say yay, and then buy you a beer. Jonathan Spiva, Justin Holt, Chad Swarwout, William Smith, Stephen Weinstein, and John Brown. Thank you all for being Patreon backers of the show.
Yay, thank you.
And I'd like to point out, Bill's not here because he threatened me with violence and left.
But Bill,
and
He
we
still
love him
loves
for
you.
that.
I'm just saying, he still loves you. It's deep down inside. But we'd also like to thank our sponsors, VMware, JumpCloud, and Collide for sponsoring this episode of the MacAdmins podcast. If you'd like to do something nice for the MacAdmins podcast, you can come to our party right now and let us buy you a beer. Alternatively, you can go and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and other places and say, this podcast is great. They totally bought me a beer. Probably.
Or water if you don't drink beer or
Water
soda.
is fine. We will also accept soft drinks. I will happily purchase soft drinks. So I don't have any Topo Chico, Emily. I'm sorry. We'll work on that.
I know, we're in Minnesota. It's fine. I'll go back to Texas. There's Topo Chico there. It'll be fine.
So thank you very much to Alan joining us from NASA.
Thank you.
And
Yay,
it was a thrill to
Alan.
have you. And to our now departed guests from Microsoft, Paul and Jeff. So, and of course, thank you to William for actually lining them up and threatening Charles with violence to get them off stage at the right time.
And to be clear, not now departed like dead.
No.
But
Having
now
left
departed,
the building.
Like not in the room.
Yes,
We
they
left
have
them. We gave them back in a reasonable condition.
According to Kevin White, who I can see there, words used to matter.
So this has been another fine episode of the MacAdmins podcast. It can't happen without all of the wonderful people out here who listen. So thank you so much to everybody who came out tonight. We hopefully see you over at Finnegan's and come enjoy some hospitality. So thanks very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.